Goes hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. We are going to do As the Wheel Turns, So Do the Days of Our Rides, recap of the MS 150 that I did the support ride this last weekend. It's the last weekend of June. Typically it lands on that every year. Me and my family have been doing it for over the last 30 years. I'm going to go over a couple of bullet points on that. In addition to, hey, the things that we came across and talked about, and all those little things that happen during the, those support rides that you just don't really kind of remember until you're in the moment. And when you're in the moment, you're like, I got to remember to express this or write it down somewhere. So this is my virtual way of putting it on a notebook, and for future references for those who are going to do support ride, either you are a participant in the support ride, volunteering, do mechanical support, or actually have that particular disease and you're trying to encourage your family and friends. One of the things I want to bring across, coming across this live video here and a recap of the MS-150. So let's just get comfy here so we can talk about it, because I'm kind of been tired of being on my feet for 2 days straight-ish, and I want to start with what all goes, we can't get this to adjust, there we go. What is all involved, right? What does it take for a mechanic or a bike shop or support for these particular events? I mean, there's a lot of pieces and those kinds of things that are in play for people to do these events, actually just from riding. But I'm going to give a little kind of a recap of what it takes for us individuals as bike mechanics and so forth to do these particular events. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my stuff together so I can see any comments that anyone puts in up. But anyway, yeah, live and one phone call and all my devices freak out. So anyway, and it's probably a spam call anyway, everybody knows those. So let's go back in time. Yeah, I'm doing the reference of Wayne's World. Anyway, or is it Wayne's World? Whatever. Yeah. So back in 1989, talking to my mom after making an earlier video and so forth, and she saw it, and she, kind of gave some insights of, we just opened Parker Bikes up in '87 in the late fall. '88 was just our first year getting into it. In '89, we were approached, or in '88 to '89, we were approached by the MS Society to do this particular ride. And my mom was saying she didn't want to do it. I mean, she's like, we just opened a business. We don't have time to, put all this into that. And my dad was like spearheading, like, we need to do this. And it's, good promotional for our business to get us out there, that kind of thing. And my mom was very reluctant to do it. And my mom and dad, they're the ones that opened Parker Bikes in '87. Well, it turned out over the years a big event and got us all involved, and my parents would always go out and do the actual mechanical support, and we would stay back behind to take care of the shop and business. And during that process, over a decade of time that my dad put into this, he became more and more involved in the sense of being the bike shop coordinator. So he's the one that would talk to all the bike shops, go to the MS meetings and post meetings and all those time to get these, all volunteered by the way, just to get all this together and to make sure that the bike shops had people out there and they were committing themselves and who's showing up where and keeping the communication afloat. So he really dug his teeth into this. And even after we had to close our shop in 2001, Parker Bikes, he still continued to do so, supporting the MS Society here in Colorado and supporting being the bike shop coordinator until the year he passed away in 2005. So he put his heart and soul, and I would say this is probably a good part of his legacy. Let's just put it that way. So we picked up the torch, or I started picking up the torch a year later. So there was 1 year that we missed there before he passed away in May, and it was too much, none of us could really, it took us a year to kind of recover. I went out there the following year and did the support ride, and it was really cool because like a huge hug from everybody, from the MS Society, you know, missing my dad and all that, which was really cool. And I continued to do it the year and year after that, and I was working part-time at Cyclery at the time, but I've worked with him over the years, and that particular time I would do the event for them. So I was working doing the event under the Lee's banner for several years, and I started getting my old buddies from Parker Bikes days back into it, and now it's like a guys' weekend, and we've been doing it continuously together, over 15 years. There was probably 1 or 2 years that we missed in there due to the fact of either moving or COVID. I think it was like the only 2 times I've missed. But when we recap 2023, MS 150, it finally feels like a normal ride before COVID, right? So you had the event staff out there, you had the riders out there, and it felt like the 2019 MS 150. It was like we were out there again as a big family trying to cure this disease and, you know, provide help for those who have it and those kinds of things. And you know, it's like one of those deals where you're like, oh man, it's like, did I do it every year? You know, it takes a lot of time and effort. Let's talk about how much effort it is to get us, not just on the organizational level. I mean, the organization has its people, and it's all, they reach out at the beginning of the year and get us committed to do this event and all that. It's a big ordeal. But as like my little micro world, which is to do this event, my goal is to be able to fix almost everything, if possible, without going to the extremes. In the field, in triage, to keep these riders going, because they have a huge heart to do this. So why not? Why shouldn't I do it too? So, so I spent several days, weeks, days prior to the event, like ordering the right, get the right tubes and cables and make sure I have all the cable ends and all the little bits and things I'm going to be doing, doing this event. And it's a pretty lengthy checklist, and every year I need to write it down, and it's just in my head. I got half of it written down, it was kind of funny. I shot a video of it last year, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch that video, see what I had on the bench to identify, like, oh, I need to bring this stuff and that stuff, and some of the things I have in bins are ready to go for next year, which is great. But there's some of these little tools that you don't get multiples of. So it's just not cost effective to do that. And also, the supplies of tubes and tires, and making sure you have those things to be able to provide those services while you're in the field. So yeah, I do go over and beyond and above that most shops would probably do. And since I've been doing it for so many years, I kind of pick up, it's kind of nice to make sure you have those things to keep those people going, from even having like extra bolts for cleats, to extra pedals, to bar tape, to cable housing, to all those little things. And rim tape. Don't forget the rim tape, because that's always the deal. And this year, the spokes. Ooh boy, they got us this year. I mean, it's one of the wheels I had to replace a drive side spoke, and it took forever to find the right spoke because I had every size in between. I finally found that 280 millimeter spoke to fit this one guy's wheel, and it took me a good 30 minutes, just struggling through. With another wheel, we had to replace the spoke, ironically, at the same time. So we're just kind of fussing with it. And my buddies and my son, I mean, they don't work in shops day to day, and they're not hands-on anymore. They've gone on to software or CNC machining and that kind of thing. I mean, they're handy, but I'm kind of like the lead. So when it comes to like the troublesome issues, I'm the one that gets thrown at. But we had like 3 or 4 of them all at the same time. It was like, whoa, not just fixed flats or cable adjustments. It was like, this one's really weird. We got a cable or a derailleur hanger alignment issues and that kind of thing. So it was, and not say it happens all day long. It's just to give you a feel. If you're going to do one of these support events and that kind of thing as a mechanic or a bike shop owner or what have you, to build your community, what you're looking at is you will be busy for about like an hour, maybe two, but you'll be sitting there for like 6. So it's always when you're hungry. It's just, it's like one of those things, you order French fries and it comes to the store and you're like, oh, that's the only way you're going to get busy. Just order some French fries because they're going to be cold by the time you get to them. Same kind of concept. I mean, you get, bam, busy, and it just, before you know it, your head's down, you're grinding through, and you're taking care of people as you can, and before you know it, you're like, where'd they all go? It's like this whirlwind of people rolling through, and you're like, I need to take pictures, and like, I can't. So I just threw my camera up and did live. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this live this time, and just, yeah, whatever we capture, and that's what happens. So anyway, it's just one of those things, the conversations that came out of it. That's what I want to get into is like, yeah, the parts and tools that we missed before, but the experiences from prior rides were very important, and conversations about my dad and how it's effective in it. And actually, a lot of the riders, you start to get to see, and it's like, you remember those individuals that you either helped their bikes out in years past, or they do the ride every year, and you kind of develop, hey, nice to see you again, that kind of thing. And it's just, it's like that warm hug, your second family kind of thing. It's actually pretty cool. So it's one of those events that I just wanted to kind of get this out as a recap. Like, yeah, it takes about twice as long of gathering all the parts and getting all the tools and loading up the vehicles and all that than actually doing the event and physically being there. So like the 6 hours on Saturday and the 3-4 hours on Sunday, you're doing about twice of that between getting everything ready, and then afterwards you got to put all that stuff back. It's like you're wiped out, been in the sun, it's been hot, you're tired. This year we had wind issues, so it was blowing our tents all over the place, so I need to get more sandbags to secure those tents. And I had display bikes up, and one of them did fall down. I was like, oh. So I got to go through those 2 bikes to make sure the bar tape's all good and everything. But it's one of those things where at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's like what happened, it happens. You try to get you're there as a family and getting the people out there riding, supporting, and going further and enjoying, doing this. And you can see their tiredness on the second day, and you're like, what am I going to do? Air up your tires, lube your chain, make it shift smoother, whatever can help you to get through the second day, because the first day they spent themselves riding that 60 to 100 miles for this ride, and the second day they're doing another 60 or plus miles to get back, and there's elevations, and it's Colorado, so there's altitude, and we do get people from other states to come do this event, so it's one of those deals. But one note is I've seen a lot of nicer bikes out, which is great. The people are investing in road riding and getting nicer bikes. There's a few people that definitely need to look into upgrade. But for most all, people are on nicer equipment than years past, so it makes it easier for us techs to kind of keep you going and making your experience a little bit better. So keep in mind that if you're a rider and if you're doing a training, make sure your bike is tuned and ready to go. That's one thing. But the second is like, is your equipment kind of up to date? It doesn't have to be like this year's model or what have you, but within the last decade or so, and make sure it's fitted to you, because that's going to save you. So when you're doing the riding, you want to make sure you got all those things kind of covered, and they have huge checklists for you at the MS that they give you as riders, like, oh, this is stuff you're looking for, nutrition and training and all this. And unfortunately this year it was kind of crazy because we've had so much rain and colder temperatures. It made it really difficult for a lot of people to get out there and do training. And that was one of the bigger just side note complaints, like, they didn't have time to train. It's just weird seasonality thing, and that's affected the bike shop businesses too. We're all just been slow because people it's been wetter than usual and colder than usual. So that was kind of a big hard push for a lot of them to do this event. It's like, yeah, I only got like a week and a half of training in versus the 3 months of training or 2 months of training before doing this ride. And kudos to them still go out there and doing it, and putting all that efforts and making it a very wonderful experience for everybody involved. And it just really kind of blows me away where the other volunteers like, oh, thank you for being out here. It's like, we're doing the, for me, this is the easy bit. I mean, you guys are either dealing with MS or you're dealing with a family member that has MS or a friend and helping them through this. And you're the one that's like raising all this money and trying to bring awareness and all these things. It's like my bit is microscopic compared, but again, yeah, we all need to lean on to each other to make these events, from the person that's serving out water or setting up the porta potties or unlocking the porta potties. Yeah, don't forget to unlock those things. For the event, and just showing up on time and taking notes and communicating to the advisors or the MS Society for future rides and so forth. That's where the post meetings are just so huge for these events. And so if you're a part of any kind of charity ride type thing and they're asking you to come by for the post events, bring the side notes of 5 or 6 items like that can be approved upon. Because at the MS Society, it's not just my little local chapter, it's a nationwide thing. So all those little gold nuggets that they can get can be shared through this, the whole network of different charity rides. And I've done a couple charity rides that are not MS, they're just something else. And man, you're like, you can really tell the difference of, oh, they're at the first day of the lake kind of situation. Like, oh my, they don't have anything going on and they don't even think about it, And I don't know if it's going to be very successful. And it's kind of rough on everybody, and you don't want that. You want it to be you already have hard variables to deal with. Weather is one, definitely outside. You got traffic and organization, but kudos to the MS Society. They were able to scramble and get enough tech support for each or almost every rest station to help people along, even if it was just a guy with a toolbox with a couple tubes and with a bag stand. That's sometimes it's all they really need just to keep them going. And since we're a little bit heavy hitters in the sense we've been very seasoned at it, and they know I show up with my game on. They usually put us in the more intense. It's like, we need you here. It's like, all right, this is where we'll be. I scramble, 3 or 4 people, so it's like 3 or 4 of us out there. Unfortunately, a lot of shops can only spare 1 person, and they get overwhelmed. And I remember that, being that one guy, and I was at Horsetooth Reservoir, and this was like the 2nd year of doing it by myself. This is where I quickly realized I needed help. Like, somebody's going to come out with me to do this, because I got crushed. I was like 2007, and I had a line of like 30 people. And I was not the first, I was the first stop, but I wasn't at the beginning of the ride. So they were people having some issues. And I was like just cranking through flat fixes and cables and everything fast as I could. And now I remember that ride vividly because I was like crushed. But anyway, so that really inspired me to grab, I need help. So again, don't ever hesitate to ask for help when you're doing events like this. The more the better, even if it's just somebody to, pump up tires or put lube on the chain, or at least divert the traffic of people, because sometimes you can get really busy, and when you're trying to focus on getting one thing fixed, you just can't talk to like 8 people at the same time. So you do what you can. So here we are. Yeah, so post 2023 MS 150. Yeah, most of the tools I had there were good. The parts we had, that one spoke with shortage was another. I need to get a little more variety of tires, more of the gravel styles. That was kind of we were able to fix it, but it might be good to have on hand. But other than that, it was actually a pretty good ride. And again, we'll be there next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. Because how my dad put it, we're going to keep doing it until there's no need for it. So here we are. So thanks for hanging out, and thanks for watching the videos of the MS 150. And I will touch base on this, and I'll probably put out some videos for, let's get ready for your event ride video series, and some things for that to think about. So those who are just getting into the cycling world, welcome. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And let's dive into July. Tour de France is coming. Let's watch that. Should be interesting. It should be a lot of fun. Again, from the garage, and thanks for spending time with me. You have a wonderful day.